Tom Chen stood at the window of the human spaceship and looked down at the planet below. The world was covered in tall crystal towers that reached up toward the sky like fingers made of glass. Strange purple clouds moved between the towers, and 3 small moons hung in the orange sky above. "First time seeing an alien world?" asked Captain Maria Santos as she walked up beside him. Tom nodded. "It looks so different from Earth. Those crystal buildings must be hundreds of stories tall." "The Zephyrians have been building those cities for over 5,000 years, Captain Santos said. "They are one of the oldest civilizations in this part of the galaxy. That is why this meeting is so important." Tom felt his stomach turn with worry. He was just a language expert and cultural researcher. He had never been an ambassador before. The Earth Council had chosen him because he could speak 12 different human languages and had studied alien cultures for 10 years. But studying something in books was very different from actually meeting aliens face to face. "Remember what we learned about them," Captain Santos continued. "The Zephyrians are insect-like beings. They have hard shells on their bodies and 6 arms each. Their society is ruled by queens who control large areas of their planet. These queens are very proud and can be dangerous if they feel disrespected." Tom pulled out his datapad and read through his notes one more time. The Zephyrians had contacted Earth 6 months ago through radio signals. They said they wanted to meet with humans to discuss trade agreements. But their messages had been cold and formal. They called humans soft flesh creatures, and seemed to think humans were weak because they did not have natural armor like the Zephyrians did. "The most important thing," Captain Santos said, "is to not show fear. The Zephyrians respect strength and view fear as a sign of weakness. Their queens especially hate it when other beings seem afraid of them." "What if I say something wrong?" Tom asked. "Just follow the cultural guidelines we studied. Speak clearly, stand tall, and do not look away from the queen when she speaks to you. Oh, and never comment on their appearance. They see any mention of their physical features as either a challenge or an insult." Tom nodded and put away his datapad. Through the window, he could see their destination growing larger. It was a massive crystal palace that sat on top of the tallest tower in the city. The palace was shaped like a pyramid, but with many flat surfaces that reflected light in different directions. It looked both beautiful and intimidating at the same time. "Landing in 10 minutes, announced the pilot, through the ship's communication system. Tom went to his small room and put on his best diplomatic clothes. The Earth Council had given him a dark blue uniform with gold buttons and the symbol of Earth on the chest. He looked at himself in the mirror and tried to appear confident and strong. His black hair was neatly combed and his brown eyes looked serious and professional. The landing was smooth. Tom walked through the ship's corridors with Captain Santos and 2 security guards named Alex and Nina. They were both tall and strong-looking, which Tom hoped would help show the Zephyrians that humans could be tough when needed. The ship's doors opened with a soft hiss. Tom stepped outside and immediately felt the strange atmosphere of the alien world. The air was thicker than Earth air and had a sweet smell like flowers mixed with metal. The gravity was slightly lighter, making each step feel bouncy and strange. In front of them stood 3 Zephyrian guards. Tom had seen pictures and videos of Zephyrians before, but seeing them in person was completely different. They were each about 7 feet tall and covered in hard, dark green shells that looked like armor. Their bodies were somewhat like large insects, but they stood upright like humans. Each guard had 6 arms and large compound eyes that sparkled like black diamonds. Their mouths had sharp mandibles that moved when they breathed. "Human delegation," said the center guard through a small translation device attached to his chest. The device made his voice sound mechanical and emotionless. "Follow us to the throne room. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless Queen Vexara gives you permission." The guards turned and began walking toward the Crystal Palace. Tom and his team followed behind them, their footsteps echoing on the smooth crystal ground. As they walked, Tom noticed more Zephyrians working around the palace grounds. Some were tending to strange plants that glowed with soft blue light. Others were moving large crystal blocks using tools attached to their arms. All of the Zephyrians stopped their work to stare at the humans as they passed. Their large compound eyes followed every movement. Tom tried to remember Captain Santos's advice about looking confident, but it was hard not to feel small and out of place. The entrance to the palace was a tall archway made of crystal that seemed to grow right out of the ground. As they passed through it, Tom saw that the crystal was not just clear like glass. It had patterns inside it that moved and shifted like slow lightning. The patterns were beautiful but also somehow alive-looking. Inside the palace, everything was even more impressive. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all made of the same living crystal. Light moved through the crystal in waves, creating a constantly changing display of colors and patterns. The corridors were wide enough for 20 people to walk side by side, and the ceiling was so high that Tom could barely see the top. "The Queen has ruled this region for 200 years, the lead guard said as they walked. "She controls 47 cities and commands an army of 1 million warriors. Your species will show proper respect." Tom noticed that the guard's translation device made everything sound like a threat, even when the guard was just giving information. He wondered if that was just how the device worked or if Zephyrians really spoke that way to everyone. They walked through many corridors and passed dozens of rooms filled with strange equipment and more glowing plants. Finally, they reached a massive set of doors that were 30 feet tall and covered in intricate carvings. The carvings showed scenes of Zephyrian battles and victories. In each scene, large Zephyrian queens stood over defeated enemies. "The throne room," the guard announced. "You will enter when the queen commands. You will speak only when she gives permission. You will not move from the designated area without her approval." The huge doors began to open with a low rumbling sound. As they swung apart, Tom saw the most amazing room he had ever imagined. The throne room was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness high above. The walls were covered in the same living crystal as the corridors, but here the patterns were much more complex and moved much faster. In the center of the room was a raised platform made of black crystal. On the platform sat a throne that looked like it had been carved from a single massive gemstone. The throne was at least 15 feet tall and covered in sharp spikes and angular designs. And sitting on the throne was Queen Vexera. Tom had thought the guards were impressive, but the queen was beyond anything he had expected. She was nearly 12 feet tall, with a shell that was not dark green like her guards, but instead was a deep blue-black color. Her 6 arms were longer and more graceful than those of the guards, and each arm ended in hands that looked like they could easily crush stone. But what really caught Tom's attention were the patterns on her shell. Unlike the guards, whose shells were mostly solid-colored, Queen Vexera's shell was covered in intricate designs that glowed with their own light. The patterns moved and shifted constantly, creating spirals and waves that flowed across her entire body. The colors changed too, flowing from deep blue to purple to silver and back again. "Approach," Queen Vexera commanded. Her voice was much deeper than the guards' voices and came through the translation device with a rumbling, powerful sound. Tom and his team walked forward until they reached a line marked on the crystal floor. The queen's large compound eyes studied each of them carefully. Tom tried to stand as tall and confident as possible, but he felt like a small child standing before a giant. "So these are the humans," Queen Vexera said, "the soft flesh creatures who think they are worthy to speak with the Zephyrian Empire." Her voice carried clear contempt. The patterns on her shell began moving faster and the colors became brighter. Tom remembered from his studies that this was probably a threat display meant to intimidate them. "You have no natural armor," the queen continued. "Your bodies are weak and vulnerable. You have only 2 arms where we have 6. You are small and fragile. Why should the mighty Zephyrian Empire waste time speaking with such inferior beings?" Tom felt his confidence starting to slip away. The queen's presence was overwhelming, and her words were clearly meant to make them feel small and worthless. He could see Alex and Nina standing stiffly beside him, trying to look brave but obviously intimidated. Captain Santos stepped forward slightly. "Your Majesty, we come in peace to discuss trade opportunities that could benefit both our species. Humans may appear different from Zephyrians, but we have many valuable technologies and resources to offer." Queen Vexera's mandibles clicked together several times, which Tom's research had told him was either a sign of amusement or annoyance. The patterns on her shell flared brighter. "Technologies?" she said with a laugh that sounded like grinding metal. "What could weak flesh creatures possibly create that would interest us? We have built cities that touch the sky. We have conquered dozens of worlds. We have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years while your species was still crawling in mud." The queen stood up from her throne, making her seem even more massive and intimidating. Her 6 arms moved in complex gestures that Tom recognized as formal threat displays. Each movement was precise and powerful, clearly designed to show her strength and dominance. "Perhaps we should demonstrate the difference between our species," Queen Vexera continued. "Guards, bring the testing chamber." Let us see how these humans handle a simple trial of strength. Tom felt panic rising in his chest. This was not going according to plan at all. The meeting was supposed to be a formal diplomatic discussion, not some kind of test or challenge. He looked at Captain Santos and saw the same worry in her eyes. But as Tom watched Queen Vexara move and gesture, something unexpected happened. He stopped focusing on her threatening words and intimidating sighs. Instead, he found himself fascinated by the patterns on her shell. The way they moved and flowed was unlike anything he had ever seen. The patterns were not random or chaotic. They followed mathematical rules, creating spirals that moved in perfect sequences. The colors shifted in harmony like a symphony made of light instead of sound. It reminded Tom of things he had seen on Earth. The way storms moved across the ocean, the patterns that frost made on windows in winter, the spirals in seashells and flowers. Tom had always been someone who noticed beauty in unexpected places. As a child, he had spent hours watching clouds change shape or studying the patterns that raindrops made on glass. In college, he had taken art classes along with his language studies because he believed that understanding beauty was important for understanding different cultures. Now, watching Queen Vexara's threat display, Tom realized he was seeing something incredibly beautiful. The patterns on her shell were not just intimidation tactics or biological functions. They were art in motion, more complex and gorgeous than anything humans had ever created. The Queen was still speaking about tests and demonstrations of strength, but Tom barely heard her words. He was completely captivated by the flowing designs that covered her shell. The patterns seemed to tell stories of power and grace and ancient wisdom. Without thinking, without remembering the diplomatic protocols or the warnings about not commenting on Zephyrian appearance, Tom spoke. "Your Majesty," he said, interrupting her speech about human weakness, "forgive me, but those patterns on your shell are absolutely beautiful." The throne room fell completely silent. Every Zephyrian guard froze in place. Captain Santos and the security team stared at Tom with expressions of shock and terror. The Queen herself stopped moving entirely, her 6 arms hanging motionless at her sides. For a long moment, nobody moved or spoke. The only sound in the vast throne room was the soft humming of the crystal walls. Then, something extraordinary happened. The patterns on Queen Vexara's shell suddenly flared with brilliant white light, brighter than anything Tom had seen since entering the palace. The light was so intense that everyone had to squint their eyes, but the white light only lasted for a few seconds. Then the patterns began cycling through colors that Tom had never seen any Zephyrian display before. Soft golds and warm silvers flowed across her shell, mixed with gentle greens and peaceful blues. The patterns moved differently too, creating slow, graceful waves instead of the sharp, aggressive designs from before. Queen Vexara's compound eyes focused directly on Tom. When she spoke, her voice came through the translator sounding completely different from before. Instead of threatening and harsh, it was soft and confused. "You see beauty in my war markings?" Tom felt his heart beating fast as Queen Vexara stared down at him with her large compound eyes. The beautiful patterns on her shell continued to flow in colors he had never seen before. The silence in the throne room stretched on, making every second feel like an hour. Finally, Tom found his voice again. "Your Majesty, I apologize if I spoke out of turn. But yes, I do see incredible beauty in those patterns. They remind me of some of the most beautiful things from my home world." Queen Vexara slowly lowered herself back onto her throne, but her posture was completely different now. Instead of sitting tall and threatening, she leaned forward with what looked like curiosity. Her 6 arms moved in gentle, questioning gestures rather than the aggressive displays from before. "Tell me more about this," she said. Her voice through the translator was still deep and powerful, but the harsh edge was gone. "In all my 200 years of rule, no being has ever used the word beautiful to describe my war markings." "Explain what you mean." Tom glanced at Captain Santos, who gave him a small nod that seemed to say, "Keep going." He took a deep breath and tried to organize his thoughts. "Your Majesty, those patterns on your shell follow mathematical rules that humans find naturally pleasing to look at. They create spirals and waves that repeat in perfect sequences. On Earth, we see similar patterns in many places we consider beautiful." Tom paused, trying to think of the best way to explain. "For example, when storms move across our oceans, they create spiral patterns very similar to what I see on your shell. We also see these patterns in our flowers, in the way our rivers wind through landscapes, and in the shape of our galaxies when we look at them through telescopes. Queen Vexara's patterns shifted to even softer colors, pale golds and gentle silvers that seemed to glow with inner light. You compare my war markings to storms and flowers? Yes, Your Majesty. But not just any storms. The most beautiful and powerful storms that fill our skies with amazing colors and lights. And not just any flowers. The most perfect flowers that grow in mathematical spirals that seem too perfect to be natural. One of the Zephyrian guards moved slightly, and Tom could see that his shell patterns were also changing, becoming less rigid and aggressive looking. It seemed that Tom's words were affecting more than just the Queen. Tell me more about how your species views beauty, Queen Vexara said. This is very different from what we expected from humans. Tom felt more confident now. This was a subject he had studied and thought about for many years. Humans have always found beauty and power, Your Majesty. We are not afraid of things just because they are strong or dangerous. Some of our most beloved natural phenomena are also our most powerful. He gestured with his hands as he spoke, trying to help explain his ideas. We find beauty in thunderstorms even though their lightning could destroy us. We find beauty in volcanoes even though their fire could burn our cities. We find beauty in the ocean during storms even though their waves could sink our ships. Queen Vexara was listening intently, her compound eyes never leaving Tom's face. Continue, she said. We have learned that power and beauty often go together, Tom continued. The most beautiful things in our universe are often the most powerful. Exploding stars, swirling galaxies, the aurora lights that dance in our polar skies. These things could destroy us easily, but we still find them wonderful to look at. Tom pointed gently toward the Queen's shell. When I look at your patterns, I see that same combination of power and beauty. The way they move and flow shows incredible strength, but they also create the most complex and gorgeous designs I have ever seen. The Queen was quiet for a long time, her patterns continuing to shift through soft, warm colors. Finally, she spoke again. For 3,000 years, Zephyrian queens have displayed these patterns, believing they were symbols of aggression and territorial dominance. We thought they would make other beings fear us and respect our power. She gestured with all 6 arms toward the other Zephyrians in the room. Every member of our society learns from childhood that these patterns are weapons of intimidation. We show them when we want to threaten enemies or establish our authority over weaker beings. Tom felt a growing sense of understanding. Your Majesty, may I ask what your people call beautiful? Queen Vexara's mandibles clicked together several times. Beauty has always been considered a weakness in our culture. We believed that caring about beautiful things made beings soft and vulnerable. Beautiful things were seen as distractions that could make warriors lose focus in battle. So your people have hidden anything they found beautiful? Tom asked. Yes, the Queen replied. For thousands of years, we have suppressed anything our hearts found pleasing to look at. We believed that strength meant rejecting beauty and embracing only practical, functional designs. Tom shook his head in amazement. Your Majesty, I think there has been a terrible misunderstanding for a very long time. What do you mean? Queen Vexara asked. Tom took another deep breath, realizing he was about to share something that could change everything between their species. Your Majesty, what if those patterns on your shell are not actually war markings at all? What if they are expressions of beauty that your species has been hiding behind the idea of aggression? The Queen's patterns suddenly stopped moving entirely. For several seconds, her shell showed no shifting colors or flowing designs. Then slowly, new patterns began to emerge, patterns unlike anything Tom had seen before. These new designs were incredibly delicate and complex. They moved like gentle water flowing over smooth stones, creating intricate lace-like patterns that covered her entire shell. The colors were soft and warm, pale blues like morning sky, gentle greens like new grass, and warm golds like sunlight on flowers. These are my true patterns, Queen Vexara said quietly. I have hidden them for my entire life, only allowing the aggressive war markings to show in public. I was taught that these gentle patterns would make me appear weak and unfit to rule. Tom stared in wonder at the Queen's natural patterns. They were even more beautiful than the war markings had been. The delicate designs flowed and danced across her shell like living art, creating a display of such elegance and grace that it took his breath away. Your Majesty, Tom said softly, those patterns are absolutely magnificent. They are more beautiful than anything I have ever seen. Captain Santos and the security team were also staring in amazement. Even the Zephyrian guards seemed transfixed by their queen's display of her hidden natural beauty. Queen Vexara looked down at her own shell, as if seeing it clearly for the first time. For 200 years I have ruled by showing aggression and dominance. I believed that fear was the only way to maintain control and respect. She gestured toward Tom with one graceful arm. But you, a member of a species we considered weak and inferior, have shown me something I never understood. You found beauty in what I thought were displays of threat. You were not afraid, you were impressed. Tom nodded. Your Majesty, humans have learned that true strength often comes from being confident enough to show beauty rather than hide it. The most powerful leaders in our history have been those who could inspire others with magnificence, rather than terrify them with threats. Queen Vexara stood up from her throne, and now her movement was completely different from before. Instead of sharp, aggressive gestures, her motions were flowing and graceful. Her true patterns continued to dance across her shell, creating a display of elegance that filled the entire throne room with soft, warm light. Tell me more about this idea, she said. How does your species use beauty as a form of strength? Tom thought about the best way to explain this concept. Your Majesty, on Earth we have learned that beings are drawn to beauty much more powerfully than they are driven away by fear. Fear might make someone obey you for a short time, but beauty and magnificence can inspire loyalty that lasts for generations. He gestured toward the crystal walls around them. Even your architecture shows this understanding. These crystal palaces are not just functional buildings. They are works of art that inspire wonder and respect. Anyone who sees them immediately understands that the beings who built them must be incredibly advanced and sophisticated. Queen Vexara looked around at her own throne room, as if seeing it with new eyes. We built these structures to display our power and technological superiority. But you are saying they also serve as displays of beauty? Absolutely, Your Majesty. The way the light moves through these crystals creates some of the most stunning visual effects I've ever experienced. It shows that your people are not just powerful and advanced, you are also artists and creators of incredible skill. The Queen's patterns shifted to even more complex designs, incorporating spirals within spirals that seem to go on forever. No one has ever described our architecture as art before. Other species usually comment only on how intimidating and fortress-like our cities appear. Tom smiled. Perhaps they were so focused on feeling intimidated that they never allowed themselves to see the beauty that was right in front of them. Sometimes fear can blind people to wonder. Queen Vexara was quiet again for a long time, her true patterns continuing to flow and dance. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with something Tom had not heard before, uncertainty mixed with hope. Human Ambassador Tom, she said, I must ask you something that may sound strange. If your species finds beauty in power and strength, how do you view our entire civilization? Not just our architecture or our individual patterns, but everything about our society and culture? Tom considered this question carefully. It was clear that his answer would be very important to the Queen, and possibly to the future relationship between their species. Your Majesty, from what I have seen and learned, your civilization represents one of the most impressive combinations of strength and artistry in the galaxy. You have built cities that touch the sky while creating architectural beauty that takes my breath away. You have maintained a stable society for thousands of years while developing technologies that seem like magic to us. Tom gestured toward the other Zephyrians in the room. Every member of your species that I have met carries themselves with a grace and dignity that speaks of deep cultural sophistication. Your natural patterns are masterpieces of living art. Your ability to work with crystal and light shows an aesthetic understanding that my species is only beginning to develop. Queen Vexara's patterns were now flowing in designs so complex and beautiful that Tom could barely follow them with his eyes. The colors had deepened to rich purples and deep blues mixed with brilliant silvers and golds. And most impressive of all, Tom continued, is your willingness to question your own assumptions and consider new ideas. It takes incredible strength and wisdom for a ruler to listen to a stranger's perspective and honestly examine her own beliefs. The Queen stepped down from her throne platform and walked closer to Tom and his team. As she moved, her patterns created trails of light that lingered in the air behind her, filling the space with flowing ribbons of color. Human Tom, she said, I have ruled for 200 years believing that strength meant making others fear me. I have hidden my true nature because I thought beauty was weakness. I have built my entire identity around intimidation and dominance." She stopped just a few feet away from Tom, her massive form towering over him, but somehow not feeling threatening at all. The gentle light from her patterns made everything around them seem warm and peaceful. "But in just a few minutes of conversation, you have shown me something that changes everything I thought I knew about power and leadership. You were not intimidated by my war markings. You found them beautiful. You did not fear my size and strength. You appreciated them as artistic expressions." Queen Vexara's voice became even softer, and Tom could hear genuine emotion coming through the mechanical translation device. "For 3,000 years, we have shown our greatest treasures to the galaxy, believing they were weapons of war. You are the first being to see what we truly are beneath our armor and aggression. If this is human weakness, then perhaps we have been strong in all the wrong ways for all these centuries." Tom felt his eyes filling with tears at the profound sadness and hope in the Queen's words. He looked up at her magnificent form, with her true patterns now displaying in full glory, and realized that this moment would change both their species forever. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "perhaps the greatest strength of all is the courage to let others see your true beauty." Queen Vexara extended one of her graceful arms toward Tom, and what he somehow understood was a gesture of friendship and respect. Her patterns were now glowing so brightly and beautifully that the entire throne room seemed to be filled with dancing auroras. When she spoke again, her words left Tom completely speechless. "Human Tom, if your species can see beauty where we have always shown aggression, and find strength where we have always tried to hide vulnerability, then perhaps you can teach us what we have forgotten in 3,000 years of trying to appear powerful. Perhaps the alliance we need is not one of military might or technological exchange, but one of learning how to be beautiful and strong at the same time." Tom opened his mouth to respond, but found that no words would come. The profound wisdom and vulnerability in the Queen's statement, combined with the incredible display of her true patterns, left him standing in stunned silence. Captain Santos stepped forward and bowed deeply to the Queen. "Your Majesty, it would be an honor for humanity to learn from Zephyrian culture, and we hope we might have something valuable to share in return." Queen Vexara's pattern shifted to the most complex and gorgeous display yet, incorporating elements of both her aggressive war markings and her gentle natural designs, creating something entirely new, patterns that showed both strength and beauty united in perfect harmony. "Then let us begin," she said, "not with treaties of trade or military alliance, but with something far more important. Let us learn together how to be magnificent."